Today on the audio hotline, I'm going to be doing a review of the Røde XDM-100. As of shooting this video, this is a pretty new USB dynamic microphone. In this review, I will be focusing on the XDM-100, but I will have a review of the Røde XCM-100. But in this review, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with the UNIFY software and everything. So if you are looking for a demo, kind of a walkthrough of that software, you're in the right place. The way that I look at this microphone is that the XDM-100 is essentially the Podcaster 2. But even though this isn't labeled like the Podcaster 2, I think that's essentially what it is. But I'm going to be straight up with you. I did not like the Røde Podcaster microphone. Was not a fan of it at all. So I'm really hoping that I do like this one more than the original Podcaster. But the Podcaster and this microphone do also look quite a bit like the Procaster. But since I mentioned the Procaster, I will actually have that microphone in this review. I will have a blind comparison here in a little while. I'll put the microphones that I will include up on the screen right now just so you can check that out really quick. But currently I am recording this microphone just into my PC. I'm actually using the UNIFY software to record this, but I currently don't have any of the On-Board DSP turned on. Just everything is completely natural right now. But if you are looking for a USB dynamic microphone, I gotta say that there's a lot of USB dynamic microphones on the market right now. Compared to a couple years ago, it's just boomed. There are a lot of options. And this option, the XDM-100, actually comes in at $250, which I would say is kind of on the more expensive end of a USB dynamic microphone. In fact, the Shure MV7 comes in around that same price. However, that microphone's capable of XLR and USB. But let's not assume this isn't worth the price. We'll test it out. We'll go through all this stuff, see if it's worth it, and see if I like it and if you like it. But I do want to say something kind of cool, kind of exciting, but also somewhat of a disclaimer. Røde finally called. An audio hotline answered that call. That was kind of underwhelming. I've been a big fan of Røde for a long time. My first two condenser microphones ever were the NT1 and NT1A. So it's exciting to be able to work with a company that I have admired for so long and kind of got me started on this whole thing. But like I mentioned earlier, Røde has not nailed it 100% of the time with me. I'm not a fan of the Podcaster. There are a couple other products that I'm not crazy about either. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is that I'm going to call it like it is. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel about this. They sent these products to me for honest reviews, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything. But let's go ahead and talk about what comes with the XDM-100 if you decide to purchase it. The Røde XDM-100 comes with the PSM1 shock mount. It comes with a 3-meter long USB-C to USB-C cable. It comes with a download for the UNIFY software that comes with this microphone. Something that's not labeled on the actual box, but it does come with it, is a headphone extension cable. I believe that's also 3 meters long. It does come with a foam windscreen as well. And of course, the microphone itself, the XDM-100. When it comes to the accessories and the build quality, I've got to say that it's honestly impressive. The microphone feels as good as a Procaster, and that thing is super sturdy. And the shock mount feels like an NT1A shock mount. It's a great shock mount. And I gotta say, this windscreen is very unique, very different than what I'm used to. I think the rubberized design on here is a really cool idea to make a foam windscreen not look so boring. Regardless of whether this is a USB microphone, an XLR microphone, or whatever, this build quality is outstanding for the price point. It is a very big setup though, and if that's something that kind of turns you off, definitely keep that in mind. But now that we've talked about what comes with this microphone, now let's go ahead and talk about what comes on this microphone. Let's go ahead and talk about the features. On the side of the Røde XDM-100, there is a 3.5mm headphone jack. Right above that, there is a headphone volume control knob. And actually, that knob does have a dual purpose. If you click that knob in, it will actually mute this microphone, so it acts as kind of a knob and a button. And speaking of muting this microphone, on the opposite side of the microphone, there is an indicator light. When the mic is muted, it will be a red light. And when the microphone is not muted, it will be blue. And you might be thinking, hey, that is pretty high up on the microphone. I bet that foam windscreen will cover it up. And you would absolutely be correct. It would cover it up, but Røde's got you covered. Røde actually put this little clear piece in the rubberized part of the windscreen, and it will actually show that indicator light through that clear spot. And for the last feature on this microphone, on the very bottom is where you will plug in your USB-C cable. And I've just got to say, the design of this microphone is gorgeous. The little bit of red showing through the grill and the red on the front of the microphone is just a really nice touch. It does kind of remind me of the MV7 a little bit, and I really do like that look. But there is one thing that is a little bit of a bummer to me, and that's the fact that it does not have a gain knob. Now, I understand this does come with the Røde UNIFY software, and it's really easy to change your gain in that software. However, a physical dial still would be really nice. It's not like there isn't room on this microphone. It's a pretty big mic, so I think they could have done it. But I do think this little spot where they allowed you to still see the indicator light when the foam windscreen is on is just genius. That's awesome. But we've gone through what comes with this microphone, what comes on this microphone. Now let's go ahead and talk about what comes in the microphone. Let's go ahead and discuss a few specs. The Røde XDM-100 is a dynamic microphone with a cardioid polar pattern. This microphone is USB bus powered. It has a frequency response of 20 Hz to 20 kHz. It has a max resolution of 24-bit at 48 kHz. It is compatible with Mac and PC. However, the UNIFY software is only currently on Windows. However, it was confirmed to me that a Mac version is in development. Well, now we've gone through the more informative section of this review. Now let's go ahead and do a quick software run through. And by quick, it'll probably be a long time. If you're not really interested in the software run through, there are timestamps down below. Now I'm going to take you through the Røde UNIFY software. Røde does have some walkthrough videos of this software that you can go check out if you want even more information. I'll go through all the features and everything it's really capable of. However, I won't really go ultra in depth for every single thing. So if you do need more information, definitely go check out those Røde videos. I'll leave them down in the description. But let's go ahead and get started with the top left of the software. As you can see, there is a record button, and you can see the time counting up when it is recording. Next to that, there is a marker option. So if you say something like ultra super dope and you just want to remember exactly where you said it, you can just press that little marker right there. Then here in the middle, you'll see a little left and right indicator. This is your meter. I don't understand why every meter does not have a decibel indicator next to it, but for whatever reason, it doesn't. Underneath that is where you will see your output mixes. So right now I have it set on stream mode, but I could do headphone 1 and 2, and basically you'll get as many headphone options as you have microphones that you've plugged in. As you can see down here, I've plugged in the XDM-100, which I'm using right now, the XCM50, the NT USB Mini, and the Video Mic Go 2. So all of those devices have headphone options, so I can literally control exactly what that person is hearing. So if someone was using the XCM50 right now, it shows you an indicator right up top, headphone 2 right there. I could control how much of me they are hearing, how much of the system or chat they're hearing, all that kind of stuff. But also if you are in like an interview situation and you have the chat right here, you can also determine how much they can hear you and if they can hear any sounds or system noise. These are grayed out, but you can actually go in and activate it right here if you do want that chat person to be able to hear that sound. But also your recording levels can be different than your stream levels, as well as your monitoring options. But this gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to output and controlling what people hear and what you want your stream to hear, what you want to hear, what you want your interviewee to hear, everything. But now if we go to the right, if I were to click this right now, it's the recordings view. You can't go into recordings view if you are recording. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording really quick and then show you that when you do go into the recordings view, you can see your recordings on the left. And if you go and select one of those recordings, you can see that you can play it, you can listen back to it, you can view the markers that you made for that recording. And also this gives you an option to delete the recording. You can also change the color of the recording if you want to color coordinate exactly what is for what, whether it's a YouTube channel, a podcast, or whatever. But this is also where you export the recordings. And I always export WAV files, but you can do MP3 files. So for me, I'm just going to export it at 48 kilohertz. And I'm not going to change the LUFS in the export right here. You can actually choose that though. If I were going to, I'd probably go somewhere between -16 and -20. But that is also a really handy, really nice feature, because then your recordings are at a standardized level, and then you can easily upload them as a podcast or whatever content you're making. But now let's go ahead and go back to the main view, and the button next to that, it shows mixer view, and that's this area right here. But before we dive into mixer view, right next to that is where you can actually launch the Windows settings. So if I were to click that, it'll actually bring up my sound settings in my Windows computer. It's nice that it has this as an option and that it pulls this up. However, I have had some weird Windows routing issues in the past, and hopefully no one else kind of runs into the weird little things that I ran into. But here you can choose the input and output for Google Chrome. So for instance, if I wanted to send Google Chrome's audio into the UNIFY app through the browser output, I could select that. Then down here for Zoom, I could have that be the chat output. Right here is your preferences option, channel assignment, the open system mixer preferences, and about. Channel assignment is definitely very important. This is where you will go and add your audio devices. Like if you hadn't added a microphone like the XDM-100 to it, this is where you would go in and grab that microphone and drag it up. Then also down here, these are the different virtual device options. You can just go ahead and drag this up if you wanted to use like the browser setting. Preferences is where you have your option, the stereo, multi-channel, latency low, ultra low, whether you want it to verify whether you do want to close the app when you exit out. And then these are just the help tools. If you hover over something, it'll give you a little hint or a little help. And Open System Mixer actually just opens the exact same thing as this button, the Launch Windows Settings. About just shows you what version you're on and everything. But now let's go down into the mixer area. We've kind of talked about the labels of the headphones right here and the level slider. And next to this, there's a little white line. And essentially that is an indicator of how loud you want your recording to be. Like that's like a good level. But up here you can see where the microphones are labeled, and as you can see to the right of this, I have plugged in microphones that aren't Røde X microphones. It gives you a lot of the same options, and actually you can update the microphone's firmware from UNIFY, which is really nice too. So if you click on the XDM-100 little logo, it'll take you to this section, and this is where your onboard DSP can be controlled. Initially, when you first plug this microphone in, it actually does automatically have some onboard DSP on. Let me just restore to default, and I'll show you exactly what Røde has as its default settings. This is the default Røde setting. When you first plug your microphone in, this is what it sounds like, and this is what it sounds like when you do not have any of the onboard DSP on. When you plug in a non-X microphone, you still get all of these options. The option you do not get is the advanced option, which is a really cool option. This is where you can go to adjust each of the parameters for your onboard DSP effects. So this is definitely an advantage when it comes to the XDM and XCM line. But now that we're in here, let's go ahead and test the different onboard DSP options. Let's first start with the gain. I'm going to turn it all the way down and then all the way up, and you can see just how much gain it kind of has to play with. Right now we're at 0 decibels. Now we are at 5 decibels. Now we are at 10 decibels. Now we are at 15 decibels. Here is the microphone at 20 decibels. Now we're at 25 decibels on the XDM-100. Here is 30 decibels on the microphone, and I would say I'm about 1.5 feet away from it now. And actually 36 decibels is the max, so here is as loud as the microphone gets. And I just measured, and I am exactly 3 feet away from the microphone. So this microphone actually does have quite a bit of gain on tap. But now let's test out the high pass filter. Here is no high pass filter. Now here is a 75 hertz high pass filter. And now here is a 150 hertz high pass filter. Since Røde does have that high pass filter at 75 hertz on by default, I'll leave it on while we test the other onboard DSP. Now I have the noise gate on, and you can definitely tell that the noise floor level has gotten quite a bit more quiet. Now in the advanced settings for the noise gate, there are pretty much all the options you would expect and want. The different parameters for the noise gate are threshold, attack, hold, release, range, and I always struggle with that word. Hysteresis? I think that's right. Hysteresis isn't like an ultra common parameter on noise gates. It is on some. The easiest, but probably not the best way for me to describe it, is in association with the threshold. The threshold essentially opens and closes the noise gate, meaning when I'm talking over a certain level, it opens up the gate, and then as soon as that level drops below the threshold, then it closes the gate. Hysteresis basically gives you an option to essentially add almost like a second threshold. So once the level reaches where the hysteresis line is, which is this closer dotted line, that's when the gate will actually close, and you can kind of see that with the green and white indicators. Noise gates that do use hysteresis can actually sound quite a bit more natural, so definitely give it a shot, don't just count it out. When it comes to the other parameters, essentially the attack is how fast that gate is going to open up and allow your voice to come through, and the release is essentially how fast that gate is going to close once you stop talking. Noise gates can be a little bit tricky. Some people like them, some people don't like them, but I will say if you do not get the settings right, they can sound very unnatural. Now, if you go over to the compressor, it has the parameters, threshold ratio, attack, release, and gain. Gain essentially being makeup gain. But like I said before, depending on your level, how loud you speak, and the way you speak, you should go and adjust these settings accordingly and really just pin down what sounds best for you. Next are kind of the more EQ enhancements you can make. This is the Aphex Big Bottom and Aural Exciter, and it's really nice that Røde has included actual visual aspects for each of these onboard DSP effects, because right here you can kind of see when you're speaking how much it's affecting the low end and the high end. But to show that visual aspect, kind of go even more crazy, we could turn up the drive on the low end and you'll see that that's getting even higher. And to make it even more insane, even though this sounds ridiculous, we can affect even more of the low end, and you can see that now it's affecting everything essentially under 198 hertz. And this is a lot of bass, wowzers. But I think with the Big Bottom, you could go a little bit crazy, and you should avoid doing that. But right here, it does have the inactive and active button, so you can just turn that on and off right here. With the Big Bottom, you can make it sound pretty good, especially if you do have that high pass filter on. And now for the Aural Exciter, this is going to affect the high end of the voice. Once again, let's get a little bit crazy with it. In this instance, we're going to be turning it all the way down and affecting more of the mids and highs. And now we're turning the harmonics all the way up, and you can see that in that visual chart, we're like really messing with stuff, and this sounds actually terrible. With the Aural Exciter, one thing you can get into a little bit of trouble with is if you start really bumping up the frequencies of your sibilants, meaning S's. Like if your S's sound really sharp, you're going to want to change the tune and the amount of harmonics if you are using the Aural Exciter. Learning where that sibilance is in your voice and trying to avoid accenting it is a good idea. Now to show you the rest of the mixer, as you can see right here, there's the system chat, virtual music options. You can press plus and add even more if you aren't recording. But just to show you a real quick example, I will open Google Chrome real quick. In my routing settings, I chose to go to the virtual output for Google Chrome. Like I said before, the labels really don't matter. You could send it wherever you want. But now if I were to start playing this, and I went to Unify, you can hear that it's going into the virtual output option here. I could turn it all the way down. And for all the channels, there is a mute option, there is a solo option, and you can absolutely utilize those for each of these. I'm actually recording in Røde Connect. And here I am reviewing a microphone actually came out in while I'm reviewing a microphone. This is wild. And over here you have your classic little sound pad. And that's going to go to the sounds option. You can go and delete all of these sound effects if you want to and put in your own, or you can just go to the next page and start adding your own here. But you can just press the little plus button, you can name it, change the color, you can add whether it holds, loops, or replays, but then you can just go ahead and choose the actual sound effect that you want to use. Now under here is just the option to mute the headphone output and also what headphone output you want to use. Here's an option to mute your monitor output. This is the output mix that you want to hear in your monitor output, and this is the device that your monitor output is going to go to. But this has been a relatively lengthy run through of UNIFY. If you do have any more questions, you can definitely leave them down below, but also you can go check out those Røde walkthrough videos. Well, now we've discussed a lot of the information surrounding this microphone, but now let's get to the really important stuff. Let's start testing this microphone out and see how it sounds. I mean, we have been testing it out the whole time, but let's do some specific tests. And the first thing that we're going to test out is a proximity effect. I'm going to get close to this microphone, pretend I'm going to take a little bite out of this yummy thing. Here's how it sounds if I get really close to it without the foam windscreen on. And here's how this microphone sounds with the windscreen on the microphone. I'm probably like a half an inch to an inch away from it. Now this next part is going to get a little bit loud. We're going to do some plosives. The first test I'll do is just sending them directly into the microphone. And then right after that, I will angle my mouth away from the microphone, kind of putting my air past the mic, which is a good practice. People should be doing that, but we'll see how effective this windscreen is with these plosives. Petey Pablo pickled peanuts. Petey Pablo pickled peanuts. Petey Pablo pickled peanuts. Petey Pablo pickled peanuts. Now we're just going to do a real quick test where I test if the tone of the microphone changes with and without the windscreen on. So right now I'm talking to the XDM-100 with the windscreen, and now from the exact same distance I'm talking into the XDM-100 without the foam windscreen on. Now if you are a gamer that's going to be typing on a really loud keyboard, here's kind of a worst case scenario situation. These are MX Cherry Blues, and here's how the microphone rejects those. Now I'm talking into the front of the microphone, slowly turning it to the side. Here's the side of the mic. Now I'm going toward the back of the microphone. Here's the back of the microphone. Now I'm going to the front. Oh yeah. Now we're going to take a polar pattern test one step further with some white noise. And now for the most important test in this video. Maybe the most important test in the history of the damn world. Let's do a kitty purr test. Do you approve of this mic? Oh, okay. Seems like he does. Right now, I am 3 inches away from the microphone. Now I am 6 inches away from the microphone. This is me a foot away from the XDM-100. Now I'm 3 feet away from the Røde microphone. And now I'm 6 feet away from the Røde XDM-100. Right now I'm in a completely untreated room. Definitely not an optimal place to record video or audio. And you can definitely hear a little bit of the room get into the microphone. Check. Check. Microphones like this are going to be better in untreated rooms versus like the XDM-100. Most of them won't cut like all the reverb out or anything. But this is kind of a test within a test also. I do currently have the XDM-100 plugged into my phone, and I do think I am getting a little bit of interference. But on the Røde Reporter app, it does recognize it as the Røde XDM-100. But here's just a real quick phone and untreated room test. Now I know this microphone is mostly meant for spoken word, for gamers, streamers, YouTubers, podcasters. However, some microphones that you don't expect to be good at something are good at that. So that's why we're going to do a guitar test anyway. We'll do an acoustic and electric test, starting now. Well, now we've gone through a lot of the tests that I wanted to do. Now let's go ahead and jump into the blind comparison that I mentioned earlier. But get ready for some very repetitive phrases. I apologize for that, but it's kind of how it has to be. But let's go ahead and kick it off with a palate cleanser microphone. Here is the Røde PodMic coming in as the palate cleanser microphone before this blind comparison. Now let's go ahead and get into said blind comparison. Here is microphone number 1 in this blind comparison. Here is microphone number 2 in this blind comparison. Here is microphone number 3 in this blind comparison. Here is microphone number 4 in this blind comparison. Here is microphone number 5 in this blind comparison. Once again, we have microphone number 1, and I'm exactly 6 inches away from this microphone. Once again, we have microphone number 3, and I'm exactly 6 inches away from this microphone. Once again, here is microphone number 5, and I'm exactly 6 inches away from this microphone. Once again, we have microphone number 2, and I'm exactly 6 inches away from this microphone. Once again, we have microphone number 4. I'm exactly 6 inches away from this microphone. This is the final audio test for microphone number 1. Now, are you ready for the big reveal of the blind comparison? I'm sure you are. I'm sure you're sick of how much I just repeated myself. Let's get into it. Microphone number 1 was the Røde Procaster. This microphone used to go for around $230, but you can actually find it now on B&H for $155. And even used, you can find it for a little over $100. In this test, I used it with a Focusrite Scarlett Solo. Microphone number 2 was the Shure MV7. This microphone will often go between $220 to $250. Microphone number 3 was the Maono PD400X. This microphone can go anywhere from $120 to $150. And one of the biggest reasons I did want to include this microphone in this comparison is because it does have onboard DSP, much like the Shure MV7 and the Røde XDM-100. Microphone number 4 was the microphone this whole review has been about, the XDM-100 from Røde. Microphone number 5 was the Deity VO-7U. This microphone was recently on sale for around $130, but it can kind of go anywhere from $130 to $170. Now that I've listened to this microphone an absolute ton, I'm ready to give you my opinion of the Røde XDM-100. When this microphone initially came out, I gotta tell you, I was pretty torn about it because there are quite a few USB dynamic microphone options out there, a lot of which are XLR and USB. So when this came in at $250 and it was only USB, I was very concerned. I did not think I would like it if I tried it out. But even with that being said, I've got to say there is definitely a place for the XDM-100 to live and thrive in. This is for a person that wants to upgrade their sound, but they don't want to move to XLR. They just want to stick with USB. And a lot of the people that want to do that are gamers, streamers, and podcasters. It was obviously targeted at them for a reason, and I've got to go with Røde on this one. I think it was a good target audience. I think they pretty much nailed it. Is this microphone absolutely perfect for that audience? No, but I think it's pretty close. But I think that Røde did a really good job of making this microphone very appealing to that audience. This is very much just a spoken word mic. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Personally, on my own podcast, I would have no problem using this, and I actually probably will use it on a future episode. So I've talked about the people that this is for, and it's kind of the target audience, but the people this isn't for, musicians, singers. But if you are a beginner that wants a dynamic USB microphone, I don't think this is the right choice for you. I would recommend that someone starting out at least gets a microphone that is XLR and USB compatible. And that's honestly more just like to future-proof their potential likeness of audio. Because even though the XDM-100 does sound really good, it's not like the pinnacle of audio. There are absolutely XLR microphones out there that sound better and that you can do a lot more with. But I do think this is a fantastic upgrade from a lot of USB microphones, especially for spoken word users. So if you're a person that currently has like a Blue Yeti that you live stream with and you're looking for something that sounds a lot better, looks a lot cooler, and can last you a long time, this could be your mic. It's a really good mic that knows what it is and it's good at what it does. I personally do like the sound of the microphone a little bit more without the foam windscreen on it. I will say though, if you do turn on the oral exciter when the windscreen is on, it kind of makes up for the loss of high end. But speaking of sound, this is a pretty beefy microphone. The bass response on this microphone is definitely better than a lot of USB microphones that I've heard. Some USB mics can sound really thin, but I don't feel that way with this microphone. It's very easy, very nice to listen to. But when it comes to plosives, this microphone does do a pretty good job as long as you angle your air past it a little bit. But for the people that want to be right on top of the microphone, the windscreen is a good option. But speaking of sound, I do think that Røde did a really good job with the onboard DSP for this microphone. The onboard DSP has definitely been tweaked and gotten quite a bit better. I can't really fault Røde for the noise gate not being perfect because people can go and change it and alter it to their own voice. So the fact that that's available is fantastic. This is kind of a dumb complaint, but personally when I plug this microphone in, I wish it didn't automatically have onboard DSP on. I wish that it would have just been its natural sound. It would be cool if there were like some different presets that you could choose between that Røde made in the UNIFY software. But I am being a little bit nitpicky here. It's not really the biggest deal. But I think that Røde is really on the right track with the software. Everything is just slowly getting enhanced and getting better. And it's great that they keep progressing and innovating that and everything and making it better. But now let's go ahead and go over my rating for the Røde XDM-100. I'm going to be using the BB-SAR. It's something that Bark from Obscure Mics and I came up with a little while ago. And it goes from 0 to 10. I'll have the graphic up on the screen right now just so you can see some descriptive words with the number that I give this microphone. And the rating that I give the XDM-100 is an 8.5. I think this is a very strong buy that's bordering on great. And I think that if this was just a little bit cheaper, it would have reached that 9 territory, but it's really close to that. Maybe if it did have XLR and USB capabilities, I'd feel a little bit better about $250. But considering the build, the accessories and the software and just everything that comes with this and all the functionality, $250 is understandable. So overall, I am happy with this microphone for what it is. Thank you all for watching this review of the XDM-100. I do have a review coming out for the XCM50 very soon. So if you are trying to decide between these two microphones, definitely stay tuned for that. I want to say a very big thank you to everyone that subscribes to the Audio Hotline, and I want to say the biggest thank you to all the members of the Audio Hotline. I just appreciate the absolute hell out of all of you. Look at those gorgeous names up there. Holy hell, those are Fergalicious. I Fergalicious definitely love all of you. How do I think of the dumbest stuff just right on the spot? Does that say something about me? I think it does. Also, a big thank you to Røde for sending these microphones over, and I will see all you audio nerds next time.